She fined me $1,000 for swimming in my own damn lake. That's not a joke. That's how my week started. Imagine waking up, stretching, pouring a cup of coffee, then finding a violation notice on your porch, dressed up like a court order, telling you that your daily dip in the lake your grandfather bought back when JFK was still alive is now apparently a crime. 20 years of peaceful morning swims, and suddenly, I'm public enemy number one, facing fines, court threats, and the kind of legal jargon that makes your teeth itch. You ever get blindsided by something so stupid you have to laugh or else you'll snap? That was me right then. Because this wasn't just about a swim, it was about power and a certain HOA president who'd turned nosiness into an Olympic sport. She'd been running her little evening patrols, snapping photos of me from the bushes like I was cooking meth instead of just clearing my head in spring-fed water. But here's what really set me off. She didn't just fine me. She said the lake was under her jurisdiction. That was the word she used, jurisdiction, like she was Judge Dredd and I was squatting on forbidden territory. I know what you're thinking. Why not just pay the fine, put up a privacy fence, let it go? But that's the thing about lines in the sand. Once someone crosses over onto your land and tells you where you can and can't swim, it's not just about the water anymore. It's about not getting pushed around. So I did what any stubborn American would do. I went digging in the courthouse basement, and what I found down there turned this HOA power trip into a full-blown war over property rights. Let me back up, give you the full picture. My name's Marcus Wellington, 52. Been an electrical contractor most of my life. The kind of guy who actually shows up when he says he will, wires your house so it doesn't burn down, and maybe fixes your porch light on the way out. My lake property came the hard way, through my granddad's will, after he passed in '05. 15 acres of Colorado pine and sky, a cabin I kept patched up myself, a dock made from timber we cut right there by the water. The lake, spring-fed, clear enough to see your toes on a cloudy day, has been here longer than most of these planned communities have been ideas in some developer's head. My grandfather, God rest his stubborn soul, bought this patch back when the only thing out here was trees and the occasional elk. No HOA, no community standards, just land, water, and the old man's vision. Fast forward, and suddenly I'm surrounded by 47 houses, each one a couple zip codes out of my price range. Lawns cut with a ruler, and neighbors who measure property value like it's a sacred ritual. Don't get me wrong, most of the folks here are decent enough. Retired teachers, young families, the kind of people who bake banana bread or stop to pet your dog. But every neighborhood has that one person. For us, it's Brenda Kensington, real estate agent turned HOA president. She's the type who moves in, drives a white SUV with some kind of blessed bumper sticker, and within 6 months is running the board like it's the Supreme Court. You can smell her coming from halfway down the street. Some perfume that costs more than my electric bill and could double as paint thinner. Life was pretty peaceful before Brenda landed. The old HOA president, Bill, was a retired teacher who figured the best way to keep the peace was to mind your own business. Brenda? She runs the HOA like it's boot camp for future hall monitors. She times garage doors, photographs barbecue smoke, measures grass with a ruler. She's the human version of a pop quiz. 3 weeks back, she spotted me on one of her sunset patrols, doing my usual swim. Next thing I know, she's digging through property records, HOA bylaws, you name it, looking for any excuse to flex her authority. And she finds, or thinks she finds, one. According to Brenda, my lake is a visibility issue, something that violates community aesthetic standards. Never mind that the lake's been here 30 years longer than the HOA itself. Never mind that half the folks bought their houses specifically because you can see water from the deck. Brenda turned my little ritual, my way of staying sane, into a federal case. That was her first mistake. The violation notice landed on my porch with all the ceremony of a court summons. $1,000 plus $50 a day until I comply. And just to make it personal, she demanded I stop all lake use, and put up screening to conceal unsightly water activity. I read that thing 3 times. Each pass made my coffee taste worse. The nerve of it, you know? Like being told you can't breathe because someone else doesn't like the sound. But see, Brenda underestimated me. I'm the kind of guy who reads every scrap of paperwork. That afternoon, I grabbed my files, drove down to the county courthouse, and planted myself in the basement archives, breathing in that smell of old paper and Lysol, wondering how many dreams had died down there under layers of red tape. Took me 3 hours, but I found what I was after. My grandfather's deed, 40 pages of legalese that boiled down to one line. My property is excluded from any future HOA authority. The old man saw developers coming a mile off. Just to be safe, I shelled out for a surveyor, $2,000 for GPS maps and peace of mind. The verdict? 15 acres, water rights, and sovereignty that predates the HOA by decades. Armed with that, I did what any fed-up citizen would do. I showed up at the next board meeting. Picture it, Tuesday night, community center buzzing with fluorescent lights and burnt coffee, folding chairs creaking under the weight of all this tension. Brenda sat at the head like she was chairing the UN. I waited my turn, then stood up, deed in one hand, survey in the other, and laid out the facts, my land, my water, my rights. The room went quiet. You could hear the coffee pot struggling in the corner. Brenda barely glanced at my papers before launching into a speech about community standards and aesthetic values. She insisted that no matter the deed, my activities impacted everyone's property values. I asked her straight out if she'd retract the fine. She tapped her nails on the table and said, "Community standards apply to everyone. If you don't pay within 30 days, we'll pursue legal options." And that's when something interesting happened. Mrs. Emerson, retired teacher 2 doors down, piped up, "Brenda, how does someone swimming in their own lake affect my property value?" Brenda started turning red. Bob Fitzgerald, retired engineer, spoke up too. "The man owns the lake. You can't fine someone for using their own property." You could feel Brenda's grip slipping. The next day, Brenda doubled down, photographing my land from the road, filing more complaints, playing amateur detective. That's when I started looking into her, too. Turns out, our fearless leader had been busy. In the past year, she'd handed out $47,000 in fines, 15 grand of which landed in her own real estate company as consulting fees. You want to talk community standards? Try self-dealing and lining your own pockets. Suddenly, I realized this wasn't about my lake. Brenda was running a racket, creating violations, scaring folks into paying, and funneling money back to herself. And I had the paper trail. Game on. Her next move was a visit from the county code officer, clipboard in hand, apologizing before he even stepped on my dock. He'd gotten a complaint about unpermitted structures. I walked him to the dock, same one my granddad and I built years ago, all permits in order. Officer Martinez shook his head, looked at his form, and said, "Sir, this dock's more legal than half the houses I inspect." Brenda, meanwhile, kept at it, digging up old bylaws, starting a whisper campaign with neighbors, even calling my electrical clients and suggesting I wasn't community-minded. That's when things got personal. She'd crossed the line, attacking my business, my name. Turns out I wasn't alone. Mrs. Patterson got fined for Christmas lights after Brenda's company listed a similar house. The Johnsons got cited for parking an RV until they hired Brenda's recommended contractor at double price. Bob, after losing his wife, was told maybe he should consider retirement living, all while Brenda brought potential buyers by to look at the place. The pattern was obvious. Manufactured violations. Pressure. Profit. So I started documenting every threat, every payment, every phony contractor. And then, in the middle of it all, I found something that changed everything. When my grandfather bought the land, he didn't just get surface rights. He bought exclusive rights to the whole natural spring system. The same springs that feed every pond, every irrigation line, every fancy fountain in the development. Brenda thought she could push me off my lake. She had no idea I could turn off the water to the entire neighborhood. Martinez, the code officer, even called to say the county had noticed a pattern. This was the fourth bogus complaint from the HOA that month. Document everything, he said. Looks like harassment. I grinned. Brenda had no clue she'd picked a fight with someone holding all the cards. Next thing I know, there's an anonymous Facebook group trashing my property, noise complaints to the sheriff about my disruptive swimming, and fake Google reviews tanking my business. Brenda was in full attack mode. Time to fight fire with fire. I hired Sarah Cruz, ex-cop turned private investigator. What she dug up was chilling. Brenda spent half her day spying on neighbors, tracking routines, keeping files with divorce records, credit checks, even job info. She was building dossiers, targeting anyone who looked vulnerable. And then Sarah found the real bombshell. Brenda had been meeting with developers, plotting to force out homeowners and cash in on commercial sales. That was it. The gloves were off. Next thing I knew, Brenda filed a lawsuit, $25,000 in damages for public nuisance, demanding I stay off the lake until a judge ruled. I waded into the water, lawsuit in hand, feeling the cold bite my calves but my blood running hot. She wanted a war? Fine. I called Beverly Thornton, a water rights lawyer with a spine of steel and a mind sharp as barbed wire. Beverly found the original water rights deed. My grandfather owned not just the land, but the springs underneath every HOA house. The development was built on the assumption they'd always have water, but no one checked the paperwork. I could legally cut off their supply, force the HOA to negotiate, even bankrupt Brenda's little fiefdom. But here's the thing. Real power means knowing when not to use it. I sat by the springs, flashlight in hand, feeling the responsibility settle in. If I shut off the water, decent people would suffer. Families, retirees, kids. So I talked it over with Beverly. We came up with a plan. Offer fair water contracts to everyone except Brenda. Expose her corruption. Clean up the HOA. And keep the community intact. We got to work. Hired a hydrologist. Mapped the water flow. Calculated 30 years of unpaid water service. Over $400,000. Set up new contracts, prepared evidence. Built a coalition, Bob as ambassador, Mrs. Emerson organizing neighbors. Stories poured out. Brenda had been harassing the vulnerable, faking violations, pressuring sales for her own commission. The big day came. HOA annual meeting, TV news cameras, packed hall. Brenda sat up front, face set, hands trembling. She tried to paint me as a threat. I laid out the numbers, the water rights, the evidence. County water rep confirmed every word. Bob played recordings of Brenda's threats. Mrs. Patterson produced photos of her meeting with developers. When Brenda melted down, screaming about sacrifice and community, I stood up, held the master valve key in the air, and told the room I could shut off the water right now. But I wouldn't. Fair contracts for everyone but her. The room erupted. They voted Brenda out, launched a criminal investigation, and tossed her lawsuit with a $25,000 judgment in my favor. The next morning, Pine Ridge felt like a new place. Neighbors waved, shared coffee on porches. Every family signed a fair water contract, and the money kept the springs running smooth. Bob fixed the HOA. No more lifetime presidents, mandatory audits, and a resident advocate to stop future harassment. Brenda's real estate license? Gone. Her husband's company? Blacklisted. The developers? Vanished like bad weather. But the best part? My business boomed. Folks across the county wanted the contractor who stood up to HOA bullies. And Beverly, well, we got closer than just attorney-client. First official date? Swimming in my lake, watching the sun rise over water my grandfather protected. We started a scholarship fund for local kids, taught the next generation to protect what's theirs, and held a Lake Day festival every summer. Property values went up, not down. The real estate agents bragged about resident-run governance. My story spread. Other communities started fighting back against HOA bullies. Sometimes the best revenge is to build something better out of what they try to wreck. This morning, I took my usual swim, water cold, sky clear, heart lighter than it's been in years. The lake's more than just water. It's proof that if you stand up, if you really dig in and hold your ground, you can turn the tables on anyone, no matter how high and mighty they think they are. So tell me, what would you have done in my shoes? When is it right to use the power you have, and when do you hold back? Ever tangled with a little tyrant who bit off more than they could chew? Share your own HOA horror stories below, or tell me how you'd have handled Brenda. Because honestly, the only way to keep power honest is to shine a light on it. And, hey, if you're out there swimming against the current, just remember, sometimes the water's deeper on your side for a reason.